Don't touch mine.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. I'm your host, that random guy, and as always, I've got the lovely, the sensually pleasing Harry Iskelly.
I ripped my clothes off.
He rips his clothes back and forth. All right. So today for part A, we're going to be talking about the Daemons, and then follow that up with Day of the Daleks. And then
in part B, we will go over Fire and Brimstone and the Walls of Confinement.
we will indeed. I'm looking forward to both of these parts this week.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm saying, other weeks I'm not, but this week is, it's quite the exception. So the Daemons. Do you want if I take it off for this week, Harry?
Go for it.
All right. So the Daemons is kind of exactly what it says in the box. It's a story about demons, but not quite the way you'd be expecting. Though I suppose if you watch Modern Who, it is very sort of similar in the way that the supernatural is explained anyway in Modern Who. It starts off with the Doctor debunking the existence of magic, and he pretty much just does that for the whole story. The unit personnel, Sergeant Benton and Mike Yates, pretty much, and Josephine Grant, decide to watch TV, and it's pretty interesting that the secret government facility had decided that the best thing to do with their government earned paychecks is to watch TV. That was a bit random. They all tune into a BBC broadcast about a archaeologist who's about to break into a tomb that's thousands of years old. What I found a bit weird is he seems to be the only person on the dig. So has he been doing this by himself?
Yeah.
Sure. All right. 10 out of 10. He can do it by himself. So the Doctor is pretty worried about this dig. He's like, man, there's something in the back of my mind that's telling me this is a bad thing. So him and Joe jump into Bessie. They zip off. Joe's like, hey, how can you be worried? I thought magic wasn't real. And he's like, no, Joe, but there's some sort of force going on there. So he
Magic's not real, Joe, but magic is also real, Joe.
But magic is also real. And by magic, I mean science that looks like magic. They end up coming out to the site, but the Doctor's too late, and the archaeologist breaks through. The archaeologist is frozen to death, and the Doctor seemingly is as well, considering we know that another 30-plus seasons follows on from this. He obviously doesn't die.
Well, he also doesn't become the fourth Doctor at this point either.
So. He doesn't wake up and he goes, teeth and curls. So the Doctor wakes up. An actual doctor, human doctor, is like, I can't believe he's alive. Someone get me a hot water bottle. I love that. Like, he's like flabbergasted this man's living, and he's like, someone get me a hot water bottle. Stat. I'm like, that is the least medical thing anyone's ever asked for ever in the history of medicine.
Yeah, I need 90 cc's of hot water bottle right now.
Right now. And they inject that 90 cc straight into the third Doctor, and he just gets up and starts third Doctoring again. It's pretty great. Benton and Mike Yates decide to take the initiative, and they take the Brigadier's private helicopter, and they drive it off to this place called Devil's End, which is where these events are taking place in the story. And I love how the Brigadier finds out. He's like, he's like waking up in the middle in the morning, and he goes, "All right, where's the Doctor? Oh, he's at Devil's End. All right, where's Mike Yates? Oh, he's at Devil's End. Oh, okay, how'd they get there? They took your private helicopter. They did what?" So he zips out of bed, goes off to Devil's End to reclaim his helicopter, and finds out that when the energy was released from inside the archaeological dig, it's created this demonic heat field around the whole city.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting. Around the whole township, rather, because it's a small little English village. And I thought it was so interesting, like how this whole story, the Doctor's like, magic's not real, but all this stuff that so especially the Christian Bible sense of demons is very, very prevalent within the story. I thought it really interesting. So basically, the Doctor finds out that, of course, the Master's behind it because this whole season the Master's been behind it.
Yeah.
I love how the Master, he calls himself the Magistra, and the Doctor's like, and so like the Doctor has a go at Joe, essentially, for not knowing that the Magister is Latin for the Master. I found that really strange. Like, and it sort of plays into the theme that I mentioned earlier in the season, is that he's a bit more irascible towards Joe than he ever was to Liz.
Yeah, I guess he's trying really hard to make her understand sciencey stuff. I guess he doesn't have much patience for her not being smart. I guess, but when she does like make like proper like real judgments about things and comes up with something good, she's especially in the next story where the Doctor points out to her a device, and it's like, hey, what does that look like? And she's like, oh, it looks like a dematerialization circuit. And he's like, yeah, Joe, you're cool.
He's like, you are totally my friend now. But yeah, so the Doctor clues in pretty quickly that the Master is behind sort of what happened at the archaeological dig, kind of a bit more than the archaeologist was himself. I'm wondering if the Master may have been the one who hypnotized this man into doing the dig in the first place.
Maybe he seemed like he was already pretty antsy and hard-headed about the whole thing already.
Yeah.
So.
I love how he's just like, you reporter folks, stay back. This is an archaeological dig. He has a go at like everybody. It's pretty great. So the Brigadier has a techie guy with him. The Doctor decides to explain to the techie fella exactly what the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
The techie guy gives it a crack at creating this device. The Doctor, it's so weird. The Doctor's able to like tell this guy how to create this like anti-demon field.
Yeah.
Like just through like casual conversation. I'm wondering how intelligent this techie guy is, and if he's the father of Malcolm, who is the techie guy in New Who unit.
Yeah, they do look like they share some resemblance actually.
Exactly.
So
I was just
that definitely seems like it. Especially consider, I guess. But I mean, he doesn't like straight up tell him. He gives him like some points to where exactly he needs to go about setting it up. But at the end of the day, he's sort of like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, he still gives it a crack. Through this field, the unit team are able to get through, and they start going to town on this demonic statue, and it turns into literally an entire army fights this one demon statue. It's so great. I love that there's a scene where Sergeant Benton fires a rocket launcher at the demon statue, and it's like the close-up of the demon is, the guy in the prosthetic makeup as the demon, and then the wide shot is like clearly a paper mache statue. I'm like, oh wow, I wish I watched this not digitally remastered. Like, if I had seen this not digitally remastered, you wouldn't have been able to tell. But because it's like been cleaned up, I was like, oh wow, that's clearly a paper mache statue. And then like when it blows up, and they're like, look, sir, and they just rewind the footage of it coming back together. That was so beautiful. I love how like, because that would have been because you're doing an on location shoot, so you have to pay for the location. It would have been so much more expensive. So obviously there's going to have to be things that are cut, and having an actual statue being made, I think would have been one of them. I just love how like the statue's clearly not moving, but on the close up shots it is. Like, I'm like, that's genius. That's 10 out of 10.
It is glorious. Yeah.
When the Brigadier finally turns up to the battle, though, I love how as soon as he hops out of the car, he looks over at Jenkins and he goes, "Jenkins, 5 rounds rapid." Like, without even a second thought, he's like, "Shoot the alien thing."
Shoot it. This is what I'm here to do. Shoot everything.
It's so great, and I love 5 rounds rapid because in the first John Pertwee season, he 5 rounds rapids that guy at close range. Like, I was just like, man, 5 rounds rapid. That's really something that you get behind there. the townsfolk have pretty much been coerced by the Master to create a sort of pseudo army to stop the actual unit army from going to the church and stopping the Master from performing a satanic ritual. But what I love
Yep.
is the Doctor explains the satanic ritual as how these aliens communicate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
it's so stupid, but like it just works because John Pertwee is the one that was saying it. Like for me, if it was like maybe Baker, Baker I'd see as like Baker joking, but when it's John
Yeah.
Pertwee's Doctor doing it, he's telling the truth. Like there
Yeah.
isn't a doubt in my mind that he's saying that these aliens legitimately communicated with each other via
Via Satan. Yep.
that was their version of Skype. Like
Yep.
what? It's just pure genius. But I love how this is echoed in New Who, the story, because they make a point of Azalon, I believe the name of the last demon was.
Yes, something
Yes.
to that
So,
end.
so Azalon is the last, and the Doctor makes a very big point about how he's the last of the species. So I love
Azael.
Azael. So I love how he's like, hey, look, you're the last of the species. He's the last one, and that they're the reason that humanity has been crafted in this way. Now, I found it a bit strange because I'm pretty certain the Silence were also responsible for developments of humanity as well.
Not to this end, though.
Yeah, not to the,
Yeah, that the demons were way previous of that. The silence had helped in a different variety of ways, mainly
right.
for the spacesuit and stuff.
Oh, right. So the Silence. Oh, yeah, you're correct because the 11th Doctor even says that. Now I feel like a tool. The 11th Doctor did actually say that all they were there for was the space race.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah. So whereas the Daemons, they were like pretty much responsible for early man's progression.
Yeah.
I love that they want to terminate us. That was what Azael's mission was when he came to Earth, was
Well,
to annihilate us because we were a failed science project, essentially.
mm.
Which is interesting because that's actually the space jockey's plan in Prometheus.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, wipe out humanity
Yes.
because we were a mistake.
Yes.
So I was like, huh, that's interesting. But more in the spectrum of New Who,
Mm.
the 10th Doctor is adamant that the beast in the Impossible Planet cannot be Satan because the Third Doctor has already seen the end of the demon race and he
Yep.
knows that the idea of Satan comes from the demons. So when the monsters are like, I am Satan, he's like, no, you're legitimately not
No,
because he's a work of fiction.
because he is created from this idea that I had already defeated.
I literally already killed what Satan was based on. So
And that's why he was all like, I've fought gods and demigods and would-be gods and demons. Yeah.
and the demon's just like, oh man, like he's just a big angry monster beast. And I love how like the 10th Doctor points it out to him. He's just like, you're just an angry beast that's like growling at me. Like you're not actually a demon. Shut up. You're just psychic and annoying. And so I love that's something that New Who, even a Russell T Davies era New Who as well, has actually pulled from a classic story. It's great to have those sorts of things play out, especially these callbacks to the classic era of Who. It's just great to see. So yeah, basically the Doctor thwarts the Master. The Master is actually arrested finally,
Yep. Yes.
which is good to see.
Captain.
Like they've been trying to arrest him for so long.
They finally do it. Finally got it down. Oh man. Do you want to know where his TARDIS is though? We don't see
Yeah.
it much.
Well, no, we don't see it. So he's always going to have that plan B of the TARDIS getting him the hell out of there. But what there's a real world interesting story to this. You know how like in Hollywood there's like the stigma, you make a satanic film or something based around Satanism and bad things happen on set.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the one bad thing that happened on set here is John Pertwee,
Mhm.
Nicholas Courtney,
Mhm.
and Katie Manning will all nearly be headed by John Levine.
Well,
Because there was a scene that didn't make it into the final cut of the episode because of this incident.
mhm.
John Levine was in the cockpit of the helicopter,
Yeah.
and he was mucking around with the buttons,
Oh no.
and he moved the rotor blade, and he was about an inch away from taking everybody's head off.
Which would have been a very sad end to Doctor Who.
That really would have, because it would have been a death knell to Doctor Who. There's no way that BBC would have recovered from that. You're losing 3 actors in one go, and John
Yep.
Levine would have certainly seen his life behind bars.
Yes.
So that would have been sad, because I've met John Levine. He's a wonderful human being, and he said in the documentary that's attached to the Daemons DVD, he said that it is the worst mistake he's ever made in his entire life.
Fair enough.
It's nearly killing 3 of his best friends.
Yeah.
That was a bit. So yeah, I mean, interesting, the story based on the origins of where we get the demonic effigies from.
Mhm.
Having such a sort of airy, sort of scary thing happen on set, and it's funny because this happens a lot in productions that are based around satanic themes. Stuff like this. I mean, it is a coincidence, obviously.
Yeah, that's the funny. That's
It's a weird coincidence.
it's really just confirmation bias when it really comes down to it, because this sort of stuff happens in every single production anywhere. There's always some coincidence that goes on that someone either gets hurt or anything like that. But it's only when they're talking about this production being about the supernatural that people start like being like, oh, it's because you're talking about the supernatural.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like no.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's not
like
because I'm talking about this.
it's like really no. Actually no. Especially considering it's also part of the particularly it probably stems from the Macbeth myth as well, that
That if you
any,
talk about it, it happens.
yeah, that if you get if well, the amount of bad things that happen with the people who play Macbeth in theatre, that they
Yeah,
always get there's always something bad that happens. It's like it's just coincidence.
yeah,
It's
it's
so
just a coincidence.
it's simply because Macbeth is probably one of the most played out things ever. So
But it's just interesting for that to have happened on set. And again, it would have been it, it would have been devastating. And
it really
I
would
don't
have.
think if Who ended then, we definitely wouldn't be talking about it now. I'm pretty
Mm.
certain it would have definitely gone the way things like Z cars went. I mean, does anybody know what Z cars is apart from me? I don't think so.
I don't even know what that is.
It was a popular BBC show around the same time Doctor Who started. For anybody who cares out there in on YouTube land, but yeah, but one of my favorite things is there's a white witch that the township they seem to accept, which is funny because the township's heavily Christian. That happens to be a key thing within this in the story, that the township itself is quite Christian, which is funny because like a huge portion of them start doing satanic rituals
Yep.
randomly. Just throwing that out there. So it was interesting that they, like just let this witch go about her day instead of like
Yeah.
she seemed to be like thing people loved her as
Yeah.
well.
She was just like she's just like the town pagan esque.
Yeah.
Like that was the amusing thing that I found about it, is that she was all like, I'm a witch. I'm a white witch, of course. I'm like, that's not what you would probably call yourself.
Yeah.
You would probably be like, I'm a pagan. I believe in the forces of nature, not necessarily a witch.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that she actually had abilities essentially, but again the doctor says it's only because like this race of beings communicated via rituals, and I
Yeah, and
suppose that explains it away because she was doing a ritual.
that she was able to communicate with them. But of course, then New Who also does some explanations further on in that thing with the terrible Shakespearean episode as well.
Oh my god, I hate that story. I wish
Yeah,
I could retcon it. Like I could
I
get
mean,
time.
I'm actually I'm okay with some of the things that they did in the story as a whole. Not the best, but things like explaining that there is a science at work with psychonic energy and words
Yeah,
particularly, which I guess it explains the things like this particular episode as well very well, is saying that that the demons' magic or the demons' science effectively was the same science that the witches had in that story.
Very much were able to possess. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could get behind that. And it also would explain away how this white witch that lived in the township was actually able to cast these spells. Is because she was actually clicking into an actual fundamental science within the Hooniverse, which is words have power. Which would also explain in the Silver Nemesis how the witch is able to time travel.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So
That's exactly like the seventh Doctor plays on that as well. Is a bunch of magical stuff goes on with the Seventh Doctor and things with the occult. And it's just simply that there is another science that exists within the Doctor Who universe. This word ritualistic one, which does get played out a fair amount. But I mean, a lot of people would. The simple thing around it is that at any particular part in science, once you reach a certain level of scientific development, to lesser people and lesser creatures, they would appear to be magic, which is what the Doctor demonstrates perfectly well in the beginning.
And Captain Jack in season 4 of Torchwood actually says that phrase. I couldn't believe that. I was just like, no, don't actually say it. Don't actually say it. It's meant to be implied. It's season 4 of Torchwood. But yeah, so it was. I thoroughly enjoyed the story. It is John Levine's favorite. Just a random another real world thing. I love the Demons. I watch it quite a lot, but for some reason, watching Doctor Who for Whoscussion, because I have to sort of go through it with a fine comb to find talking points, I find a lot more like sort of engagement with the story, and I feel like this is the most I've watched the story, if that makes any sense. Like I actually paid a lot more attention to the finer details of this, especially Roger Delgado doing the satanic rituals, man. I love how, like, when he's talking to Azal, he's doing the Satan signs.
Yeah. He's so good.
And I find it so interesting because, like, this is where I find religion differs in the United Kingdom, I think, than it does in other parts of the world. Whereas, like, you can, because the English are quite religious. What I find interesting is, like, Barry Letts, John Levine, Nicholas Courtney, Richard Franklin, they're all, religious folk. But they just did this story because, like, oh, it's just, a work of fiction, who cares? And, like, for Barry Letts to write, to produce a story, a very devout man, by all accounts, for him to, like, produce this story about the fact that they say, like, Satan's just a work of fiction, I thought was quite interesting. And it sort of caught me off guard that for that to be something that's, he would have on screen in a production like this, and for them to not get reprimanded at all for the story. I was like, wow, Britain, I've got a lot of respect for your religious folk.
I'm guessing that is simply as well. They didn't at any one point say straight up that Jesus or God was not real. That is one particular thing to note about the story, is that they don't say. The Doctor does strictly say that the devil is a mythological thing at some point in the story, but he never says anything about about Jesus or about Jehovah or Yahweh, whatever name you want to call it. He never says anything about that. I think that's the only way that they got around it, is that they probably tried to put that into the script somewhere, and then somebody was like, actually, that's the only part we can't have.
Yeah, let's not have that part, but everything else, A-okay.
Yeah, because we could, like, Christians can get all on board with them just saying, oh, that the bad part of their religion is complete work of fiction, but when you start stepping into that good part of that, don't do that.
Probably wouldn't be the smartest idea, but I like that. I like that it was handled with a lot of care, I feel, when they were talking about those sort of religious aspects and showing that the religion wasn't bad. It was the master corrupting the religion. So in the story, the master's more of the devil than the demons are.
Yeah. Even that, like that the demons, as they show up, are just scientists. That's sort of their deal. Is that they were basically using us as an experiment, but it was the master who was trying to make that more devious.
Yeah, and it actually was like planning to, like, just destroy them. Whereas like the demon, he didn't care either way. Like he was going to choose the Doctor's way because he was like, Doctor, you could just make these people awesome. And the Doctor's like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm just
I
like,
don't care for them.
and I'm just like, that's really interesting, Doctor, because later on you're all like, I wish humans were better. And I was like, there was literally a demigod alien that was going to give you their power, and you
Yeah.
said no.
But this sort of is that the Doctor at this stage in his life, I guess, is not really. He's not really on board with sticking around with the humans for too long. Like, he does not want to be their god at all. So
Yeah. So this story wraps up with one of my favorite scenes. I love the demons, man, but this scene is like it's the best way to end it. Mike Yates turns to the Brigadier and he goes, "Fancy a dance, Brigadier?" And the Brigadier goes, "Thanks for the offer, Captain Yates, but I'd prefer a pint." And they walk off to the pub. And I found out by watching the documentary on the Demons DVD that that's actually all ad-lib, and they went to the pub. I was like, that's amazing. Because Nicholas Cordy just wanted to drink.
Yep.
Just like was like, screw it, I'm going to the pub. I was like, that is the best way to end the story because it's just like chill, and then the Doctor and Joe are actually dancing like with the townspeople. I'm like, that is the randomest way to end the story because that town literally just had a whole army turn up and shoot demon statues.
Yep.
Like,
They just chill out and dance.
they just chill out and dance. I'm like, in real life, there would be so much going on. The government would have been involved. Like, but units like this is all hush hush, okay?
Well, that's sort of the big deal with Unit, really, is that I kind of imagine that this sort of the play out at the end of this is exactly what happens every other place that they go when they deal with this. Like I just imagine like after the Silurian invasion, like that everyone who was in that base just like went out and got a drink with Unit. Yeah. That's all they did. Like they're just like, oh, we just destroyed an entire race. Let's get wasted.
Let's go get drunk. But yeah, I can so see that. This is the end for season 8 of classic Doctor Who, not series 8 of Modern Who. And we move on to season 9 with Day of the Daleks. I just want to preface this before I get Harriet Shelley to take us away. This is the first Doctor Who story I ever watched, but I certainly didn't watch this with nostalgia goggles, as I'll go into as we go through the story. It is my first story, so it got me into Doctor Who. It's probably why John Pertwee's my favorite Doctor. But in saying that, I also got into Doctor Who through the novels, also through John Pertwee. So maybe there's a little bit of bias there. But we'll jump straight into it. I just thought I'd just get that out of the way first. I won't be looking at it with nostalgia goggles. I promise.
So we immediately start Day of the Daleks off with the murder attempt, as you do, that sort of stuff, and then immediately into Doctor and Joe, who are Doctor still trying to fix the TARDIS, even though that is absolutely not going to happen. Doctor, you realise this.
It's now his third year of trying as well.
In an attempt to do so, we find we end up with some ghosts, as he calls them, where there is a time loop happens and the Doctor and Joe appear twice. And the Doctor has a little fit at himself about, hey, don't do that, you'll wreck the time-space continuum. Which I absolutely imagine that the Doctor would do every single time he talks to himself, which is exactly what happens every single time he talks to himself. Yeah. Even later versions of himself. Yeah. From there, we end up plot into the Doctor going to where there was this attempted murder, and they discover a man who seems to have some future technology on him, a laser weapon and a time travel device.
Oh, not just any laser weapon, a time gun!
A time gun. Yeah. Anyway, from there we move along. The Doctor is intrigued by this time travel device that he's got, instinctively knowing that he's from the future, and of course, the person who was was attempted to be assassinated, which plays a little part of the story, is one of the delegates, Sir Reginald Styles.
Sir Reginald. I love his name, and I knew you'd remember that, man. Sir Reginald Styles. I'm a politician with style.
Yeah, who's the organizer of the World Peace Conference, who is attempting to try and get China involved, as you know what happened last time they tried to do this in China. Yeah, that yeah,
The mind of evil.
yeah. So moving along from there, we end up with well. Shortly after of course, at the end of episode 1, we find out that the future people and the people from the future, in year, what was the year?
2,270, because it's 200 years from the present.
That's the one. We find out that the Daleks are controlling the human race at this point, which seems very Half-Life 2-esque. I wonder if that's where Steam got their Valve got their ideas from for this, especially with the big towers that they are in. But anyway, yes. Yeah. So from there, yeah, of course, we immediately, they called the story "The Day of the Daleks." We knew that was going to happen. It wasn't a big surprise.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a surprise that that they are using humans, using the controller particularly, as sort of a slave-esque thing without just putting a thing on his head to control his every move. Quite interesting that is the case. But yeah, more about that later. They also have, we also noticed that they have some form of other alien with them, later called Ogrons. That just seem to be primitives in some way. I think that's the idea they were going with.
They're like a ape men species. Apparently, in the new book Seasons of War, not a plug by the way, to people of YouTube, but Seasons of War that comes out soon, the Ogrons are going to be a part of the Daleks invasion force.
Well, it does make sense that they would continue to have them. Yeah, but more about all of that stuff later. So yeah, we end up with Doctor going into the future, as you would. Joe also ends up in the future by mistake of events. Oh, I completely forgot to mention that the Doctor totally wrecks this guy from the future, the rebel, whilst holding a glass of wine, and Wicks completely destroyed. just full on Venusian crowd. He just bops him on the head. He's down, and then puts his glass of wine down, and then turns around to beat him up again.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. He like beats him up, sculls his wine, then beats him up some more. It's perfect.
It's so James Bond. Like there should have been an audio track to it. That's just like dunna, dunna, dunna.
Very Connery era as well.
Yeah, he's so good. Anyway, but yeah, basically, I'm pretty sure most people will probably know the story by now. If you don't, you should really absolutely watch it. But it basically goes on there in the general Doctor Who style. But of course, as similar to the way that the random guy has with this is probably one of the first Third Doctor stories that I ever watched. And it is absolutely fantastic. We're watching it second time, third time, fifth time, eighth time. It never ceases to amaze me. From the bad guy, who even looks like a James Bond villain, where he's like in the swivel chair and he's got the shiny face.
Yeah,
like
I'm just going to interject there. That bad guy is the Candyman from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original.
Yep.
It's so great. As soon as he turns around, I'm just like, who can make a sunrise? Sprinkle it with Daleks. So good.
But yeah, there's one particular thing that I want to talk about in regards to this. Is I find it really interesting that Daleks invade Earth for effectively just to mine our resources at this point. Because a lot of the time the Daleks show up, and especially New Who, they just want to kill everything. They just destroy everything.
They're not characters in New Who; they're tools. It's really frustrating.
I mean, like, I understand that is the ultimate goal of all Daleks, is to kill everything. Even in the beginning, is that's basically they don't like anything that's different to them, and they will eventually. That is their ultimate goal. I guess that's sort of the way that the New Who has to go about it, instead of them building up into this devastating thing. They have to just straight out with it. They're going to kill everything, and like in old Who, where they could build on it for 3 episodes before they go ahead and say they're going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the way we end up with that. But it is interesting that the Daleks have superior technology, extremely superior technology. They've obviously gained a severe amount of resources out of Earth for the construction of everything that they could want. Why have they not just built robots to do their laboring? It is so much more efficient than trying to get humans to do it.
Yeah, that's something that I've always found interesting in the Daleks, and I'm wondering if when Davros created them, if he had in mind that the Thals would become a slave race, and maybe that's just something that's perpetuated throughout all of Dalek existence, is
As if they
to enslave people rather than, like, have robots do everything. Maybe it's a power fantasy.
Yeah, I guess it's just a power thing, but it's interesting that, like, with their ultimate goal being, even in the ultimate goal being to kill everything and be the ultimate rulers of the universe, you would expect them to, and in the way that they even talk about humans in this, as saying that, like, they're unreliable, not good enough, basically. Then why are you using them as slaves? Like, you could, in theory, have just kept them for a little while until you got enough materials to build enough robots to get them to replace them. That's all you really needed to do, and then it would have been much more efficient use, and you could have quickly turned the Earth into slag for whatever you needed whatever you wanted to use it for.
Yeah, no, that makes a heck of a lot more sense. I have to agree with you there. And if you look at Invasion of the Daleks, they just eradicate us, and they are using a giant drill to
Yeah.
deliver all the work for them. So it is autonomous. So that no, I do agree with you. That sort of doesn't make any sense when the Daleks in
Yeah.
the past have. And if you look at like modern Who, they use replicants now.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting, but of course, I guess it's overall it's probably just an oversight in the writing of old Who, of course. But of course, we can simply say that these are older versions of the Daleks. Their motives aren't pure, really, at this point. In their development, they've obviously, these are the ones that would have come from Skaro. One's probably this is prior to the proper invasion of Earth.
Well, actually,
Is it?
what's actually happened is the Daleks actually talk about it. They've changed the flow of time.
Yeah,
So
'cause
these Daleks have, because the invasion of Earth happens in 2164, and this
yeah,
story is happening in the year 2270. So
right,
what they've done is they've made it so that they've changed the original plan by changing what's happening in present day Earth in the 70s by killing Styles, because the Daleks instigate the murder of Styles so that when they invade in 2164 they succeed.
right, and at this
So
point they get
yeah,
yeah.
so I'm wondering if that means that, like, in their augmented history, the first Doctor maybe didn't land.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
They might have even killed him.
well, I guess that's really it. Is that as it's well, I mean, they wouldn't have been able to, because then it's really weird the way that their time travel works within. I guess it would be an alternate timeline
Yeah.
for them, that they've created an alternate timeline that exists outside of the first Doctor and the second Doctor's incarnation. So it's gets real confusing,
Yeah.
especially with how many times that the Daleks have invaded Earth. I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
It could simply come down to the fact that because of the change in history, one probably didn't even land on Earth. Therefore, Susan doesn't end up having, a relationship with David and having children. So I
Yeah.
can see that because this killing of Styles is a change, such a complete change in history with the World Peace Conference, that it creates a completely different environment for the Daleks where they've, like Elijah was saying, they've turned the humans into a workforce instead of just exterminating them. So
Yeah.
that these are maybe they could be older models of Daleks, and that they screwed it up and they didn't realize that Daleks in the future were going to invade Earth anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, the timeline for Daleks is a bit interesting because when the Doctor went to Skaro the first time, the first Doctor went there, they didn't have the ability to fly. They didn't have um, ways of powering themselves outside of their touchpad floors.
Yeah.
They most certainly didn't have time travel, which is something that they didn't get until much later on as well.
Yeah, and they only knew it existed because the first Doctor chickened out to save him and Susan.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting the way that they work. But of course, immediately the reason why I can think immediately I understand why they quite don't match up when it comes down to it. Really, when their invasions are and all this sort of stuff, is simply because they have time travel at this point.
Yeah.
So they would be cherry picking times for them to go and do these things. Which makes much more sense with them wrecking time. But of course, it's interesting that the Time Lords just allow this to happen. They were like, okay, you've totally invaded Earth before, and the Doctor was there. One of our TARDISes was on the planet during this time, and you're gonna go ahead and mess that all up and completely paradox the crap out of it. We're just gonna let that happen. And then we're going to let the third Doctor deal with
it. Exactly, because the third Doctor's is their pawn, essentially. Like, you look at Colony in Space, you look at the first Master Story Terror of the Autons, the Doctor's just like a commodity to them. He's not even like a Time Lord to them. It's almost like he's just an organic robot, for lack of a better term. Do the things that we want you to do.
Fix our problems, really. That's sort of it.
And yeah, I reckon that's why they would have just left him to his own devices. They're like, if we look at the time streams here, the Doctor fixes it, so let's not help.
Yeah. That's basically it. Yeah, is that they just allowed him to fix it, which seems to be the way that they treat the Doctor in a lot of ways, really. And a lot of the times the Doctor shows up to fix things is simply because the Time Lords have just let him go.
Yeah,
just let him do it, and this is one of the stories that really plays that out. Is that the Doctor is the James Bond of the Time Lords, and he fixes everything, other than Rassilon, of course. But I guess it's probably because they're related.
he's literally related to James Bond.
Yeah.
He's my great grandfather. And then Lungborough's all like, "You don't have grandfathers, Lungborough."
No!
Get
out of here, Lungborough.
Get out of here, Lungborough. Go sit in the naughty corner.
Okay. But yeah, that's basically the story in a nutshell. Is the Doctor cleans up the mess that the Daleks make again. Totally saves everybody and is generally a badass. Also find it interesting that the Daleks. One particular amusing thing that I found about the Daleks is they're kind of like hyenas, and it shows very well in this story. Unlike other stories, when one of them says exterminate, they all start shaking and like moving around a little bit and saying it as well, like the way that when a hyena starts laughing, the rest of the pack starts laughing and falling over themselves. Yeah,
it's so true. Like, the Daleks just lose it when somebody says exterminate. It's like,
I really want that to be in the next time the Daleks show up in Doctor Who. Is that like the Doctor just says exterminate at one of them and they just start like going into a fit of it?
Yeah.
Like, I really want to see that.
They're like, oh my god, boy, say that again.
Oh, say it again.
Oh my god, so good. But yeah, it's crazy. One thing before we move on to part B, I want to bring up about this story is the Doctor's pretty ruthless.
He is.
Like he blows the crap out of those two Ogrons, and they're like not even firing at him. Like they're just walking, and he destroys them. And I'm just like, wow. And it's funny because like when I saw him do that, I just instantly thought of the 10th Doctor being all like, "Be the man who never would." And I'm just like, actually, Doctor, these two Ogrons. What about that?
What about every single thing you've killed?
Exactly. Like look at the first Doctor when he like kills that quarryman.
Yeah, with a
And then
shovel and puts the pennies on his eyes.
it puts pennies on his eyes. I'm like, Doctor, that doesn't make it okay. You just brutally murdered this man.
It's just like every second story of the Third Doctor, he's just just completely killing everybody, and it is really amusing when you take it in light of what New Who says. I mean, I guess that's sort of the Doctor trying to turn a new leaf, especially after what he did in the Time War. But still, these aren't the kind of sins you wash away, Doctor.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just like away from this. Like those Orkrons, they didn't even realize he was there too. Like
Yeah.
if you look at them, they don't even notice the Doctor's there, and he's just like, they don't like fall over, they explode. I'm like, Doctor, you de-atomized them. Like, what? It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So with that out of the way, we'll be jumping on over to part B.